So it's been a while since I made a video that highlights the best mixing consoles for churches. So let's go ahead and talk about it. This video, I'm gonna cover mixing consoles that are around that $7,000 range or less. This is a great size budget for small to medium sized churches needing to get a digital mixing console and maybe a few stage boxes. So I wanted to give you that budget heads up so that I don't see people complaining about, why didn't you mention my favorite SSL console or Digico console or my D-Live? Those are quite a bit out of reach for the majority of small to mid-sized churches, and the majority of you are going to be in this budget range when you're looking to buy a new digital mixing console system for your church, especially if you're upgrading from an old analog system. Also, let's talk about channel count. What's typical for most small to mid-sized churches is going to be 32, 48, and then maybe 64 channels. I'd argue between 32 or 48 is going to be the sweet spot to accommodate the majority of modern day worship ministries. You'll have plenty of channels for all of your instruments, your talking mics, as well as other channels for like your computer audio and things like that. So I'd say 48 channels. If you can go for that, I'd highly recommend it. So I went to the Churchfront community Facebook group and I did a poll and I asked, hey, what do you guys think are the best mixing consoles out there around this budget of $7,000? And you can see there is a clear trend. So not much has changed since the last time I made one of these videos where I recommended that the Wing by Behringer or the SQ series consoles by Allen and Heath are going to be the best bets for most churches out there. And you can see with this poll, and I think there's over 200 people voted on this, that a significant amount of people chose the Allen and Heath SQ series even over the Wing. I'm going to touch briefly on some of these other models and why you might decide to go with them later on in this video. But first, let's talk about this debate, the Behringer Wing versus the Allen and Heath SQ series digital consoles. And it's especially a better thing to talk about now that the Wing has been out for a few years now. I think it's been out since late 2019, and the SQ consoles, those have been out since 2017. So now they've been out in the field long enough for people to really get a good opinion, and now we have better data on how they're holding up when it comes to just quality control, how often are these things having to be sent in for repair. So the Behringer Wing, I think the advantages here are for people who are upgrading from existing Behringer systems, like an X32 with Behringer stage boxes, or maybe you had an M32 with Midas stage boxes. They're all compatible with one another. So the Wing, I think, is going to be a very compelling option if your church has already bought into the Behringer ecosystem and you have all of that compatible gear. The other thing I really like about the Wing is the innovative mixing UI or user experience or user interface. I really think they've created something that's new, and a lot of people don't like this about the Wing. It does take some time to get used to it, but if you dive into it, if you accelerate that learning process with like one of our courses, I think you're actually going to really enjoy using the Wing. The downside about the Wing I see are some quality control issues. So we had some quality control issues with the Wing that we had at South Fellowship Church. This was one of the earlier models when Wing came out back in like 2019, 2020. It was probably one of the first ones off the manufacturing line. And I remember back in the early days of the X32, back in 2012, I think was the first time I got my X32, you'd have issues with like faders going bad. I experienced that myself with one. And now I rarely ever hear that about an X32 that was made in more recent years. So I do think that Music Tribe and all these companies tend to get better at weeding out all the issues in manufacturing that leads to those defects. So the longer a console's been out, the more likely you're not going to have as many of those issues. So all of that said, I haven't heard a lot of anecdotal feedback from the community about their Wing having the ghosting issues on screens, or like for us, it was a scribble strip that just went bad. I'm not hearing about those issues that often, and if it does happen, for us, it was about I think a 2-month turnaround time. We ended up just buying another Wing as kind of a temporary mixing console. We use that for Churchfront now, and then I let the church use it in the meantime, and then we were able to get the Wing back repaired. But I know for a lot of churches, you don't really have that convenience of being able to just buy a second console, so it's something to keep in mind. The SQ series consoles, the major advantage I'd see with this is the pro level DSP in an affordable system. So they really took the pro level digital sound processing system that you'll find in their flagship mixing console like a D-Live or the Avanti console, which is kind of the step down from the D-Live. They brought that a step down into the SQ, so it's just incredibly robust, very, very low latency. It's just gonna be super reliable. The console like this is, I have not heard any anecdotal feedback from the community about their SQ like glitching on them or failing on them in the middle of a service. Not to say it's never happened, but I've never heard of it. The other thing about the SQ that you might find appealing is it has a more traditional mixing user interface, both software and hardware wise. And then again, solid build quality when you're just like touching the consoles and you feel the hardware of an SQ versus like a wing. I feel like the SQ definitely feels more premium and more solid. So again, with the wing, even though it's more innovative, you still might have some build quality issues. Here's a photo of the scribble strips that went bad on our wing. It wasn't like the whole console just completely died. It was still very functional. We just lost 4 of our faders, specifically the scribble strip, to be able to see like what those faders were at any given moment in time. But we were able to get it repaired.
Before we continue on with the video, a quick word from our sponsor, the Worship Ministry School Accelerator Program. You may not know this, but in addition to all the YouTube content we're creating here at Churchfront, we also partner with local church worship and production ministries to help them hit their ministry goals. Over the past 4 years, we've worked personally with hundreds of worship ministries around the globe. We've helped churches navigate upgrading their worship tech, building better systems to grow their team of volunteers, as well as address any knowledge or skill gaps required for modern day worship ministry. When you join the Accelerator program, you get access to our entire library of online, on-demand courses, and you get unlimited access to our team of Churchfront coaches. To learn more about joining the program, click the link below this video to apply and schedule your free strategy session today. Now let's get back to the video.
So some of the wing features I like specifically, if I'm gonna get down in some details, I really like the routing. So I really think the ability to route audio from the wing from any input source to any output source to any channel to any bus, I really like this logic. This is again a point where people get really frustrated if they're just not used to it. I don't think that's necessarily a good excuse to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think it's just worth learning it, and over time and with repetition, you get comfortable with it. And then the effects on the wing, they've really packed a ton of great effects. They even have vocal tuning in it. I don't know if I would recommend this vocal tuning over, using Waves Super Rack with a, Waves Tune or some other better plugin like that. But it works, and they have a ton of other great like analog emulation plugins that are built into the wing. So I really feel like they packed a ton of value when it comes to effects and plugins. Finally, I really like the fader hardware interface. When I'm actually mixing on the console, you guys can see videos of me doing this on the channel. I just really like interacting with the different banks of faders, how I can customize it. It's a really great mixing experience during the worship service to be able to throw whatever channel or bus or DCA in whatever order that I want on this wing. And I think specifically for users coming from an M32 or X32, you're really gonna like that flexibility where, yeah, you can do one-to-one patching on that console from an X32 to M32, but you can't just like throw your faders around onto your workspace in a convenient manner like you can on the wing. And the other big advantage I think you'll find coming from an M32, X32 to the wing is the having stereo channels. So that's a really big one. So you've got 48 channels on the wing, but those are stereo channels, where on the X32, those are mono channels. So if you have a stereo guitar set up with a left and right or keys, you're actually gonna lose out on 2 of your 32 channels on the X32, whereas on the wing, the left and right inputs, those can come into one channel. So you can have one channel with 2 inputs from a stage box. And then you've got the Behringer ecosystem. Again, you've probably already bought into this, whether it's the monitoring systems like the P16s, you've got the stage boxes. If you want nicer preamps, you can get the DL32 over the more budget-friendly S32. And then you've got these cool Clark Technic AES50 devices here. I like the AES50 to USB if I want to send audio to a computer to mix in a DAW for my broadcast. And then you can get a Dante expansion card for your wing as well. So lots of robust accessories you can add to the wing in the Behringer ecosystem. I've covered a lot of gear so far in this video. I'm going to talk about more of it. We're listing all of that gear in our worship ministry toolkit. So you can download the toolkit. It's a free spreadsheet. It's really done a lot of work in organizing all the best gear recommendations we have out there. So go ahead and click the link below to request access to the toolkit. The Allen and Heath SQ features that I really like. It's got the classic mixing experience. So for those of you who are just old school and you want that classic layout for your channel faders and having your processing, like here you can see you've got your gain knob, high pass filter, gate, compression on the left, and then you've got your EQ controls on the right. You'll select the channel and you can easily dial in the processing. It's very straightforward. So if you like that classic experience, for a lot of you that's a plus, then I would go with it. I also like the patching setup on the SQ as well. It's definitely a more classic kind of grid routing experience that you have here, and it's going to be a little bit more intuitive at first than the wing. Again, pick what you prefer. I think this one's pretty robust. And then the Allen and Heath mixing consoles, I already touched on this. It has that really low latency pro level DSP. And then Allen and Heath also has a fairly robust ecosystem with their stage boxes, their monitoring systems, as well as the expansion cards. You can get a Dante expansion card for your SQ system as well to have audio over IP. So those are my thoughts on selecting between the most popular mixing consoles for churches right now, the Wing or the SQ series by Allen and Heath. And these are some helpful comments from that poll that I ran in the Facebook group. You should join that Facebook group, by the way. Cody said, starting from scratch with no snake, no accessories, like a brand new system, he recommends the Allen and Heath SQ5, 6, or 7. Those are the smaller, the mid-size, or the larger workspace on those consoles if it's going to be the 5, 6, or 7. And then he's like, hey, if you already have the existing Behringer system coming from an X32, then go for a Wing. So I agree with that. A lot of other folks tend to agree with that. And then Alan had some just good insight. They've been using the SQ for a few years now, having the audio that can actually run at 96 kilohertz, just that higher fidelity capturing of the audio quality there. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference in a church setting if you're 48 or 96, but if you want the 96, you can have it. Also the ME system they like, and they definitely wouldn't recommend the QU over the SQ. And I would agree. Like the QU is kind of the next level down from the SQ. I would recommend staying away from that. I know many of you guys are making do with that system out there, but to me, it's extremely limiting for a church live sound and broadcast environment. Let's talk about the Behringer X32 and Midas M32. Pretty much the same exact consoles, except the M32 has the more premium hardware, preamps, motorized faders, and it's a little bit nicer, right? These have been the classic choice for a lot of churches over the past 10 years, but I do think things are changing if you're buying a new system. If it works for you with these consoles still, just keep using them. Keep in mind, you don't get stereo channels or buses, and your fader layout in your workspace is very fixed to kind of the logic of how the console's set up. You don't have that customization that you'll find on like the Wing. In my opinion, if I'm buying a brand new system, I would not buy an X32 and M32 right now. I would pay the $1,000 difference between, let's say, the Behringer X32 and the Wing right now. I think there's only about $1,000 difference there. And then I would also just invest in $1,000 S32 stage box to get those additional inputs. Because for most churches, you know, even though the X32 has all the inputs on the back of it, the local inputs, you really should be using a stage box that's going to be on stage. You shouldn't have to use that many local inputs on your console when it's back in the tech booth. Just my 2 cents on that. So to me, if you're buying a new system, go for a Wing and with the stage boxes. But if these consoles work for you right now, just keep using them. The PreSonus Studio Live system. So this has one compelling feature, which is getting 64 channels of inputs on a lower budget. Because when you get to the level where you need 64 channels, you're going to start having to pay much beyond $7,000 for your mixing console and your stage box. So this could be a good option. Maybe your church needs a lot of inputs for some reason, maybe I would look into this. I do like the UI, the way the faders work and navigating the banks of faders, as well as the touchscreen and stuff like that on the PreSonus consoles. It's not my favorite, but it's not, it's good, it's solid. Quality control can be an issue. I know with the first Studio Live console that I got, I think it was like the 32 SC, is the more compact version of this a few years ago. It was newer, and it had some quality control issues where like audio would randomly just like cut out on us in the service, and that's not a good thing to have happen. So you can speak to the quality control if you have one of these consoles. Let us know down below in the comments. So those are all the consoles that I want to touch on that are less than $7,000. But now I want to talk about consoles that are a bit more mid-level to premium options. So right now, my favorite mixing experience is the Waves LV1 system, but realistically, it's going to cost you anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 to get into the system. The reason I really like it is because to me, Waves is making some great plugins, and I'd much rather have the convenience of running all of those plugins integrated into my mixing console for front of house, and I can have the option to just process audio there at front of house for my broadcast as well, especially if the PA and the room acoustics allow me to do that, right? We did that at Grace Church. You can check out the videos we did there, where if you go to Grace Church's live stream, you're hearing an LV1 that's mixing for both front of house, and then we're using a matrix mix for the live stream. And the Waves LV1 system, it's really scalable. You can start at 32 channels with a 32 channel stage box, which is gonna be great for a lot of churches. And then as you need to expand, you can buy another stage box. You can also choose like what server is gonna work best for you, depending on how many channels and plugins you're gonna be running. But again, pricing wise, you're looking at anywhere from 10 to 20K. If I were building my dream mixing console setup, I would just go for a decked out LV1 system. Another great option a lot of churches really have been enjoying is the Allen and Heath Avanti. I've heard a lot of good things about this. It's the big brother to the SQ series consoles, little brother to the D-Live. It's kind of like a nice happy medium between those consoles. This console is 64 channels, so again, if your church needs lots of channels and you want that premium quality, this is a great option. It's got more I/O options. You can have like more, you can have 2 expansion cards, so you could run a Dante card in there and you could run a Waves card. That's a very compelling thing for me, maybe even over like a Waves LV1 setup. There's Waves to Dante bridge devices out there, but it would be nice to have one console that could talk to both Waves and Dante. Price tag wise, you're looking at $15,000 and up, probably with all your stage boxes included in there. You're going to be looking realistically at $25,000 to $30,000 with stage boxes, personal monitoring systems, expansion cards. It can get pretty pricey. The other console I did want to mention is the Digico S series consoles. So you got the S21. I know a lot of churches have had a great experience with this console. Digico, you're kind of getting into the sort of really premium bougie level of mixing consoles. This is like their starter mixing console, but it starts at like $11,000 just for the console itself. Then you get stage boxes. But again, if you have that budget of $15,000 to $25,000 for a really robust, proven mixing console system at your church, then check out the Digico system. Finally, I want to mention a brand new mixing console to just hit the scene, and this is, I put a question mark after this because I'm not saying that you should go buy this console. I just think it's kind of cool that we have another option. I'll be interested in hearing what people think of this. It's the Tascam Sonic View console that just came out. It's a brand new console. I would wait to hear from early adopters who try this console out. I wouldn't be an early adopter with this, but you can actually get into this ecosystem for what looks like $10,000 for both the console and stage boxes. It looks like it has a great UI with the faders and 3 touchscreens, and then you've got the stage boxes which are actually like Dante enabled. It has Dante built into the console for all of its audio inputs and outputs. So that's pretty compelling. And again, I've never bought a Tascam console. I think the last time I bought a Tascam device was back in the early 2000s when I needed a multi-track recorder for my garage band, right? So it's oh, actually no, the little microphones, I use the little lav mics as well. So Tascam makes some pretty cool stuff. So I'll be interested to hear about anybody's experience using this console, but I would rather not be the guinea pig with this guy. So like I mentioned, if you want to check out our list of all of our recommended gear with convenient links to buying these things on Sweetwater, check out the Worship Ministry Toolkit linked below this video. Our team at Churchfront partners with local churches to help you navigate all of these decisions. I know this may be helpful to watch a YouTube video about these consoles, but there's probably other very specific things about your church environment that would help us give you better recommendations on what mixing console would actually make the most sense. So a lot of our students in our program, that's the type of conversation we're having with them. We help them build out custom mixing templates for their church and for their team. We help them organize and overhaul their audio system and work with the gear they've got and maybe make some other upgrades. So if that accelerator program sounds like it could be helpful for you, just go ahead and click that link down below this video and apply to join the program today. That's all I got for you. Thanks so much for watching the video. Leave a like, subscribe, share it with your friends. We'll see you next time.